Hi, my name is Robert Tesk, and I come to you today from the Common Martial Arts Academy. Today, especially with the situation that we have in our environment today, the urgency of everybody having to stay at home, there's a lot of people out there who are training Wing Chun and they're not sure what to do. So today's address or video is going to definitely deal with training in solo. When you're at home and you have no training partner, there's a lot of things that you can do that's going to help your Wing Chun. Whether you're a beginner, somebody who's never even seen Wing Chun before and it's your first day, you can use this video as an introduction to your beginning Wing Chun training, because it's going to cover things that you can do by yourself that you can reference in this video that can help you start your Wing Chun journey. Also, it's going to address the intermediate students who've been doing Wing Chun for a while and want some solo exercises and things that they can do, as well as advanced students. So there's something for everybody in this video, and you can take from it as much as you need. But bear in mind, nobody is exempt from any part of the training. Don't think just because you're an advanced student that the beginning stuff is not good for you. I often make the comparison in class that knowing is not enough. You have to do. And what that means is that, knowing a push-up, it's great to know a push-up, but unless you do it, you don't get the benefit from it. So a lot of exercises in the Wing Chun system are the same thing. If you know them, that's fantastic, but if you don't do them, you don't benefit from them. And what this video is going to deal with is basically it's conditioning. So what we do when we train solo, or our forms, or some of the things that we do by ourselves, it's all about conditioning. And conditioning follows basically a certain structure. It addresses your structure, your physical structure in terms of the center line, your leverage, and habit forming. So these are the things that are built into your forms that address these components for structure, for conditioning and development. And the reason that is because of what Wing Chun is in the first place. Wing Chun, a lot of people call it a style. It's not a style. Wing Chun is a method of martial arts education. So basically, it's a system of development, and it develops your ability to defend yourself. And that's another thing that I have to address right away. There's a big difference between a martial art and a martial sport. The majority of martial arts, or what we call martial arts today, are actually martial sports. When you're trying to kind of like a duel against another fellow martial artist to see who can make the most points or come up on top or acquire a victory, that's a sport. And Wing Chun is not that. Wing Chun is specifically a martial art. So it's a system of self-defense, and sometimes self-defense means combat. And the way you define that is that you're not trying to prove yourself. If you get angry at somebody and you think you have to step outside, well, that's ego. And that's not what Wing Chun is for. You're not stepping outside with somebody to punch their lights out. That's not what the system is for. And I like to look at what I call the 3 A's of martial arts, or the 3 A's of self-defense. And they go like this. The first A is awareness. And you're aware of a hostile environment, or of a dangerous environment, or of a precarious environment, you avoid it. And that's the second A, avoidance. So you're aware of a situation that looks a little bit sketchy, you avoid it. That's the second A. And if the avoidance fails or something goes wrong and you're presented with a situation where you have to defend yourself, that's action. So it's avoidance first, awareness first, avoidance second, action is last. When you go into action, it's because you're defending yourself, and it becomes terminal at that point. There's a level of urgency involved, and your urgency involves dispatching with the opponent as fast as you can so that you can get back to safety. And that's what defines a martial art as opposed to a martial sport. A martial sport, you're in there to win, to victory. It's a one-on-one duel against another martial artist. That's a martial sport. And you can put that, and that's why it's confusing, you can put that in all kinds of different environments. You can put that in a challenge match, you can put that in a contest, you can put that in a tournament. And you start to see, even the Olympics has that for boxing, for judo, for wrestling. So you can see that it lives in other environments, but those are sports. And that's what defines a difference. The 3 A's actually define the difference for you. So let us begin, now that we have the introduction kind of out of the way. And the first thing that I want to look at is, if we're going to condition, whether you're a beginner, an intermediate, or an advanced student, we're going to look at certain criteria that we want to condition. And the one thing that has to be addressed is the center line. That's the first thing a student will learn when he comes to a Wing Chun school, is the center line theory. The center line theory addresses about myself. So let's first define what the center line is. The center line resides on the line that paints the body in half, the sagittal plane. And from the sagittal plane, the solar plexus is the origin of your center line. And it extends to your outstretched hands, the length of your arms with your outstretched fingertips. So my center line resides right in front of me from my outstretched hands. This is my center line. And I'm calling it my center line because I care not for the opponent's center line in any extreme. It's not a target. I don't try to hit his center line. It has no purpose. I use my center line for my defense. That's why we can use the second, or one of the theories, one of the philosophies of Wing Chun is simultaneously attack and defend. I can't simultaneously attack and defend if I have no clue of what the center line is. So part of the conditioning exercises of Sulam Tao is your center line. And this is where the training today is going to address the beginner student. The beginner student works the center line through Sulam Tao. And how I'm going to present this today is I'm going to take only subsets of the form. I'm not going to introduce the whole form. Obviously, if you know the whole form, doing the full form properly will have great value. But it's not important if you want to focus on some conditioning, and that's what I'm going to do today. I'm just going to focus on some of the areas that condition a result, that condition the habit, condition your structure, like your centerline structure, and condition leverage. And Sulam Tao addresses a couple of those things, your structure and your leverage. Chum Q, the intermediate student, will be looking at some movement. So we'll be looking at developing some timing involved in the movements, as well as structure and as well as shifting. So that'll be the segment we do for the intermediate student. And the advanced student, it'll be referring to body position. So we'll use only a couple of movements from each form to highlight the conditioning aspects of today's lesson. So the first thing we want to do is a little bit of a warm-up. Last week I released a video that had a home workout in it. I don't expect a student to do a home workout before he starts to train. You would do that probably after, or on separate days. What I'm talking about a warm-up here is to get the body moving. Because what happens is that if you fatigue yourself too much before you start to train, you're going to learn sloppy habits. And so you want to be fresh when you're training your structure or your conditioning. So the first way to warm up is probably a couple of minutes skipping rope. If you don't have a rope, you can jog on the spot, you can do stride jumps, a little bit of stretching just to get all the areas of the body moving. Some self-awareness. You want to especially focus on the joints because you want to get the synovial fluid, the fluid that helps cushion joints and protect joints. You want to get them all lubricated. Elbows, shoulders, waist, knees, neck. Those areas there, it's important to get those all warmed up. And once you have that out of the way, you can start to train. So what I like to do after I've skipped rope for 2 minutes, a little bit of stretching, I'll start to work on punches. So that's what we're going to do the first thing. We're going to work on a couple of punches. So with that set in mind, I want to get a good stance. So the good stance, as a beginner should know, a good stance helps to develop leverage. So that's the first thing we want to talk about today is good leverage. So I start by opening my toes fully and opening my heels fully. So right now, what I have here is Yiji Kinyam Ma. It's the training stance of Wing Chun. And what I do with this is that my hips are up, my knees are bent, my toes are in, and my heels are out. What I'm doing is I'm defining how far my feet should be from one another. And ultimately what I'm saying here is shoulder width apart. That's what they should be. But if you notice something, why the stance has an odd appearance, why the toes are pointed in, it doesn't have any function in terms of your fighting stance or fighting position. What it is a training stance, and what it's training is your leverage. And what's unique about this is if you look, and I put my hands in the center line and I shift to one side, you'll notice that my back leg didn't change. The leg that's on the back, the leg that's offering all the support and all the leverage, maintains its position. And when I come back and I shift to the other side, well, now you're looking at the back leg on the other side, who maintained its position. So when I come back square, you notice that both legs now have that same architecture or position. So you're training both legs at the same time to support your leverage. So you want to have your hips up, you want to squeeze the legs together, and you want to have your feet shoulder width apart, because that defines how far your feet should be from one another. That's your shoulder width. It gives you mobility and it gives you stability. So that's why you have the stance. Secondly, I place my hands in the center line. What I'll do here is I'll just change to one side, is I have a fist and a half away at the elbow. My elbow is down and I make fists. The other hand, my fist is at the elbow position. So I'm here. One hand is right behind the other. So I have my lead hand on the center line and I have my back hand at the elbow. When I punch, I drop the hand down and punch straight out. At the end, I just relax the elbow. Drop the hand, punch straight out, drop the elbow. Drop the hand, punch straight out, drop the elbow. So when I'm punching, it looks like this. Boom, a hit, relax, hit, relax, hit, relax. And that allows me, when I'm punching, to address my structure and protect my center line as I'm hitting. I simultaneously attack and defend. If my elbow was up and I was punching, let's say, a jab, I wouldn't get that protection. My elbow up does not protect my center line. Elbow down protects my center line. So that's why we do this kind of yachi chung choi punching, so that you can protect the center line as you're hitting. Simultaneously attack and defend. So with that in mind, I'm going to do a few exercises to help you develop that punch, and with a little bit of movement for the beginner student who's got a few classes in, as well as the student who's never seen a Wing Chun class before. So we got our stance, toes out, heels out, mark the center line. So fist and a half away, elbows down, wrist is on the center line. Both fists are aligned, and I'm just going to do 10 punches here. So drop, punch, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that's a good beginning, but we want to do a few more. So now we'll pick up the pace a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you can do this at repetition. You don't stop at 30. I just did 30 as an example. But you would continue to do these punches until you feel like you got a good workout in. So you could just punch at this space here, nice and easy. One more little detail. You'll notice my wrist. When I punch, my wrist places itself. I'm using inch power to give myself a little bit more oomph and properly place the punch to support the power or the hit that I'm working towards, right? So what that does is it aligns the fist so that I'm punching with the proper knuckles to get support all the way down the arm, through the bone structure, into the elbow and into the shoulder. So that's why I snap my wrist forward, just to get that support. And don't worry about training apparatus. We're just punching in the air. This is solo practice, so you can do it in your living room quite easily. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I pick it up a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then finally at full speed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, let's work towards a beginning student that's got a few classes in. Now we're going to change over to the side, and I'm going to punch directly forward. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I change sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Back to the center. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Over to the side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So as you can see, I can play with all the different positions, from 1 to the middle, to the right side, back to the middle, back to the left. Student who wants to step a little bit, maybe he's got an intermediate student, I can step while I punch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, change. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, change. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, change. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then back to the front again. I can even do this sidestepping in. So a student who's an intermediate student, chunks out, I come over, put the weight onto the right leg, and I step straight in the middle. So I'm stepping straight forward. I'm just stepping off, back on. So I'm talking about off the squareness, back onto my opponent. So I'm sidestepping in. So my foot steps, and then I step right back to where my center line was. Okay, so I'm aiming here, turn. Now you notice that my position is now shadowing my opponent, and I step in to hit. And I can do more than one punch at this point. I can start with the Zhongsao left hand forward, over to the right leg, 1, 2, 3. And I can do it from the other side too. 1, 2, 3. And I can repeat that going forward. 1, 2, 3, and again, 1, 2, 3. And I can step back and start over. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Over to the side, 1, 2, 3. Over to the opposite side, 1, 2, 3. Back to the front, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So I can do this whole arrangement in both sides. Left, right, center, sidestepping in from the right, sidestepping in from the left. You can compose your own routine quite easily. You don't have to follow exactly what I showed you, but you can use that as a reference. So trying to, depending on your level, stick to the basics. If you're just your first class. If it's not your first class, you've done a few and you're comfortable with it, move up a little bit, challenge yourself, and you'll see. So how can a beginner student train his conditioning? Well, that's one good part of it. That's a good warm-up. Let's leave that for now. I'll come back to it in a little bit when we're talking about conditioning, but I'm still warming up. So I want to work now a little bit of shadow boxing. Maybe I'm addressing the intermediate student or the advanced student who wants to do a little bit of shadow boxing, which is leveraging what I just did for punching, but a little bit more free, a little bit more practicing good technique while in an imaginary scenario. So what I'm going to be leveraging here is my center line theory and proper punches, proper placement of the feet. I'm not going to be kicking. These are your feet you want to keep on the ground for your leverage and your support. You use them to disbalance the opponent, or when you need to address a longer target that's away, that's stepping out of your range. We'll get that to on another day. But first, let's start with a little shadow boxing. So I can uppercut here, uppercut. I can step forward and punch, uppercut, uppercut. I can use my hand as a hun, or to move off, if you understand hun sao, to throw the uppercut in. I can marry it to a backward step. We call it the duck walk. So those of you who've already familiar with the duck walk, basically my foot comes back so that my heel of the forward leg and my toe of the back leg has moved just slightly to allow space or area. Coming back, an uppercut, up, to work the uppercut, and I can do it forward as well, backward, working that uppercut. So that's a way that you can work the uppercut, keeping the elbow in good structure. Punch, uppercut, uppercut, back, forward, punch, 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 uppercut, uppercut. I can throw a hook punch, 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 hook punch, uppercut, uppercut, punch, 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 hook, uppercut, punch, 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 hook, uppercut, uppercut. So I can play with these punches all day long without even getting tired. And this is a good way of warming up, of keeping your hands good, solid, so that you're punching, playing. And it's up to you to continue this cycle and this rotation. Remember, focus on the straight punch, the uppercuts, the hook punches. These are punches that you see often in your system. I don't want to go into where you see them, because that's a class for another day. But you'll often see a technique, doing a mukjong, you do bong sao, you come in, and then you can come in, this could be bong, you stop it, and then you can come in with a hook to come down. Shovel hook is another technique that we do, that we don't call a hook, we just call an uppercut, because the tactic or the technique brings the elbow in. But it is a hook to the body. Called a shovel hook in boxing, we use it in Wing Chun as well. So as you can see, these are not techniques that are out of other systems. They're all defined in your syllabus. So that covers a good way to warm up. You're punching, depending on your level, and if you're more familiar with punching, you can start to play with some shadow boxing to get yourself warmed up. Now, where do we condition? Well, it's pretty easy. A beginner would start conditioning with Sulam Tao. So the first part of conditioning would be, number one, Sulam Tao, beginner student, set your stance. Toes, heels. Mark your center line. Both hands go outstretched with the left hand on top, wrist crossing wrist. So the wrist bone on top of the other wrist bone. My elbows stay a fist and a half away. As I bring the wrists up, my elbows stay there. My wrists now come to a fist and a half away. Now I rechamber my hands. I place my first punch on the chest and I punch straight out. Open, and here's your first piece of conditioning. The arm has to be outstretched as I circle, do a hinsao. This develops tendon stretch, ligament positioning, ligament stretching. So it's working ligaments, tendons, and muscles to allow them to function in the area of defense as Wing Chun is trying to develop your skills. Since I did it with the left, then I do it with the right. Punch straight out. Notice how I'm keeping my elbow very tight to the center line. Open, circle, rechamber. And now we get into some major conditioning for elbow structure. Hand goes out, open in tan sao, and as I go to the center, as my hand crawls towards the center, once my wrist hits my center line, my elbow follows tightly behind it. Not trying to distort my position, but keeping my elbows tight to the center line as possible. Once I reach full fist and a half away at the elbow, I do a circle, draw my wrist, and my baby finger is now on the center line. As I come back, my wrist is now on the center line. Fully back to a fist and a half. I do a fuksao. Notice how my elbow doesn't change place. And my wrist comes back out and my elbow pushes that wrist out, keeping very tight to the center line. Circle, and I repeat. Back, fuk, back out. And I don't want to pause here or hold here or be too tense here. Nice, relax, but keep good structure. This is the conditioning for your elbow. Move to the side, turn the hand, strike straight up, open, circle, and then rechamber. And then I do the other side. Right hand, same as the left. Going to the center. Once that wrist bone hits center, elbow's not far behind. Circle, drop the wrist so your forearm is straight, covering your jitsao on the center line. Baby finger is on your center line. Now my wrist takes the center line. Wrist bone. Fuksao, fist and a half away. I can barely touch my shirt. And the elbow works its way back in. Very tight here. This is structure training. Baby finger, wrist bone. You're conditioning your structure. So you're learning from a beginner level where your structure is and how to properly define it and work it. To the side, turn, and full strike, first palm strike of the form. And then rechamber. And then you can repeat that whole sequence from the left and the right, and you can do that for a few repetitions. And I suggest that you do, because it's like a push-up. Knowing it is not enough. You must do. And Bruce Lee quoted that somewhere in one of his wisdom quotes. And it's true. Knowing it isn't enough. You have to do something with what you know, because knowing it, well, doesn't have any effect. Knowing a push-up has no effect. Knowing Sulim Tao has no effect. Doing Sulim Tao sharpens your structure, and that's for any student, whether he be a first-day beginner or an advanced student. So a student that's been advanced for a while, you can't get away from the basics. Good structure training. Now, intermediate students might want a little bit more than that. So they could start with that, a few repetitions, and then they want to go into some shifting. So with that in mind, we'll jump to Chum Kyu, and we'll take a couple of segments out of Chum Kyu just for the intermediate student. So, same idea here. Toes, heels, mark my center line, rechamber my hands, and as I come back down, my hands get to the waist, and fire straight out, and I relax my I'm going to show this from the side too. My hands come straight out, and then relax the elbows. So I'm just doing the portions that are specific to Chum Kyu. So hands drop to the waist, go straight out, and drop, relax. What I'm doing is this is elbow training, elbow recoil training. So when I punch, boom, I want to relax that elbow back down so I can protect my center line. I don't want to stay straight. where I have no protection. So this part of the form you could do a numerous amount of times. You could repeat this 10 times easy. 1, 2, and notice here when I go straight out, boom, and then relax. So that's the recoil that you want to condition into yourself. So 1 is a habit. 2, 3, 4, 5. You could do up to 10 quite easily to get that elbow recoil working. Now we want to get into the shift. So after the elbow recoil, left on top of right in the lansao, I shift. And 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 shift. 2. How many is enough? You could easily repeat that 100 times and still have more to improve on. And what you're doing here is when you shift, boom, you really want to shift and push the envelope of that power. Use the hip to drive. Drive the hip, follow the elbows, so that full body gets that benefit of that torque. Because that's ultimately what you're trying to condition, is that ability to manifest that torquing, that twisting for power generation out of Chum Kiu. Chum Kiu introduces a couple of segments. That's the movement, the pulling, and the twisting to effectively grow and develop more power. Well, this is a way of developing that twisting element for power development. The more element, the power you can develop through the twisting, the more power you're going to deliver for the hit. Another area of Chum Kiu that you can use for power development comes in a little bit later, where we do a bong sao. So come back. So I'll start from the form. So basically I'm in a position where I've turned. In lan sao, I place my hand in the crook of my elbow and I do bong sao. So an intermediate student will recognize this. Make a fist, come back into lan sao. So now I have good structure, good position that I've worked on. Hand comes into the crook of the elbow and I do bong sao. So now my hips are 45 degrees, my hands are in the center line. Back. 2. Back. 3. Back. 4. Back. 5. Back. How many would you say is enough? I could easily do 10, 20, 30, however you feel. And where there's a right side, there's a left side. Here. 1. 2, 3, you get the idea. So that's how you would condition that aspect of an intermediate student, all blended together. For an advanced student, we're going to dive into Byuji. And although Byuji is riddled with principles and theories, there's a lot of conditioning there too. So we're going to focus on a couple of pieces, 2 pieces out of Byuji that focus specifically on body positioning, and that's the gan sao and the hun sao. Without defining the form or introducing the form, I've already got my stance, Iji Kinya Ma, and the first thing I do is I place my hands on my hip. I do a gan sao. And what I'm working here is proper body positioning. So we're left, right, left. Left, left hand is out, right, right hand is out, left. And an advanced student knows wrist on the center line, wrist on the center line is my gan sao position. Shift to increase power, shift to increase power, and this is what displaces the opponent occupying the center line and me moving him off. So I catch whatever's middle or mid, and I catch whatever's low. So this is your proper body position, and why we do it in Byuji is to condition that position, the body positioning elements of your gan sao. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We could easily do a number of them. I'll leave that up to you how many you want to define. But with that being said, I also have hun sao. So hand on the center line, bend the wrist, and I do 1, and I bring it back. 2, and I bring it back. Again, this is used when you want to clear something out of the way, but proper body mechanics and structure are important to make this work. So advanced students will recognize this right out of the form. Hand comes to the side, shift. Notice how my elbow doesn't wing out. It doesn't forget its structure training. The habit is ingrained. I come back to the center, which is the voice of Byuji coming back to the center line. Hand comes back, shift, back to center. Shift, back to center. See the timing? Shift, back to center. I can easily do it with the other side. Shift, back to center. Shift, back to center. Shift, back to center. And that's conditioning for the advanced student. So those three elements alone, whether you be a beginner student, you can stay on the beginning aspects, 30 minutes easy. I don't think 30 minutes is stretching it for the number of times you want to do it. Come back to the beginning, do a few punches, go work your structure, come back to the beginning. An intermediate student could start at the beginning and work into intermediate and come back to the beginning, a good 30-minute workout. And an advanced student could visit the whole gambit of those areas for home solo training. We forget the fact that because we come to the club and we're training with our family, our Kung Fu brothers and sisters, we forget the fact that a lot of this can be done by yourself. And it should be. You shouldn't just have, the average person goes to the club, what, twice, 3 times a week, maybe? A couple of really, really dedicated people might access the club 5 or 6 times a week. That's all individual. But it doesn't mean that that has to end at the club. Solo training can be done anytime you want a bit of a workout and you can't get to the club. Or you want to supplement your club time with some solo training. It can be done all the time. And it should be done all the time. So these are elements that you can do by yourself, solo training, which are very important. Combine that with your home workout and you got a beginning of putting together a full martial arts program, which again can be quite taxing and good work ethic is definitely important. So you're going to see that martial arts is an investment. You invest your time, you invest your effort, you invest your dedication, and you get the rewards. Knowing is not enough. You have to do. One more thing I want to touch on that I didn't mention in the conditioning is the mukjang. Why am I not mentioning the mukjang in this segment? Well, it's pretty easy. Number one, not everybody has one. Not everybody has access to one at home, and this is for home. A solo workout in these difficult times can be carried over later, but it's definitely a home workout. So not everybody has a mukjang. And if you don't have a mukjang, does that mean you can't do the form? No, it doesn't. You can easily do it in the air. However, one of the main characteristics of your mukjang training happens to be your distance observation, your distance conditioning, your angular conditioning on your opponent. That you cannot do in the air. You need the mukjang for that analysis, for that conditioning aspect of how should I be placed, where's my angle, where's the proper distance. That cannot be dispensed without the actual physical wooden man in front of you. So that's the reason I didn't bring it into today's conditioning workout. If you have a mukjang, you can definitely include it in your conditioning, should you know the proper parameters of the form. But if you don't have a mukjang, well, no need to worry. There's other conditioning aspects that we can easily do here. So, thank you very much, and I hope that you find this video useful. And again, I want to recall what I said at the beginning. Any Wing Chun student can do this exercise. Whether you're a beginning first day Wing Chun and this is the first time you see a Wing Chun class, although it's on video, or you're an advanced student who's been at it for a few years. As an advanced student, been an advanced student for a few years, you can do this because we don't spend enough time doing the basics. As an advanced student, we always want to crawl into the juicy stuff, but there's a lot of benefit from doing the basics. I remember when I started my journey, my teacher's emphasis was the basics. Put the effort in the basics and your Kung Fu will, those are dividends that your Kung Fu will develop from later on. So whether you're advanced first day and this is your first class, it's for you. Whether you're a beginner, first class for you. Whether you're an advanced student for a number of years, it's for you. I hope everybody enjoys it, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you very much. Carmel Martial Arts Academy, and I'm Rob Desk.